Tom, a homeless man with a mysterious past, wandered the city streets with a heart full of generosity. Despite his ragged clothes and worn-out shoes, his kind eyes revealed a depth of compassion. Tom's past was shrouded in mystery, but his actions spoke volumes. He was known for sharing his scant possessions with those even less fortunate. His days were a struggle for survival, yet he found solace in helping others, believing that his purpose was to bring light to the darkest corners of the city. Mrs. Johnson, a well-mannered elderly woman, faced a situation that starkly contrasted with her dignified appearance. Once a lady of modest means, she now found herself expelled from a restaurant for an unpaid bill. The humiliation was palpable as she stood outside, her eyes brimming with tears. Her refined demeanor seemed out of place in this moment of public disgrace. Despite the crowd's indifferent glances, her inner strength shone through as she tried to maintain her composure. Tom observed the scene from across the street, his heart aching for the elderly woman. He understood the sting of societal rejection all too well. Without hesitation, he approached Mrs. Johnson, his steps filled with resolve. Offering the little money he had, he paid her bill, his actions driven by empathy rather than expectation. The connection between them was immediate, a silent acknowledgement of shared suffering and humanity. Mrs. Johnson's surprise was evident as Tom handed over his meager savings. She had never expected such kindness from a stranger, let alone one who appeared to have so little. Her initial shock gave way to deep gratitude. She saw beyond his tattered appearance, recognizing a man of great character and kindness. In that moment, her perception of the world shifted, and hope flickered within her heart. Their initial encounter laid the foundation for a unique bond. Tom's act of kindness was not motivated by a desire for recognition, but by a genuine wish to alleviate another's pain. Mrs. Johnson, despite her circumstances, retained her grace and dignity. She silently vowed to repay Tom's generosity, though she had no immediate means to do so. Their relationship, built on mutual respect and empathy, began to flourish. Tom's motivations were both simple and profound. He found purpose in helping others, a small beacon of light in his otherwise harsh existence. His life on the streets had taught him resilience and the importance of compassion. Mrs. Johnson, deeply moved by his generosity, began to see beyond her own troubles. Her encounter with Tom became a turning point, inspiring her to look for ways to give back. Mrs. Johnson's dignity, which had been her shield, now revealed its true strength through vulnerability. Her interaction with Tom showed her that nobility was not about social status, but about the capacity for empathy and kindness. Tom's selflessness reminded her of the importance of community and mutual support. Her gratitude extended beyond the financial help. It was a profound appreciation for the reminder that humanity still thrived in the unlikeliest of places. Tom's life was marked by continuous struggle, yet his spirit remained unbroken. His generous nature was a testament to his character. Mrs. Johnson's initial shock at receiving help from a homeless man quickly transformed into deep respect. She saw in Tom a reflection of her own challenges and resilience. Their growing friendship became a source of hope and strength for both, bridging the gap between their disparate lives. As their relationship deepened, Tom and Mrs. Johnson found solace in each other's company. Their conversations revealed shared values and mutual respect that transcended their social differences. Tom's past, though still a mystery, was overshadowed by his present acts of kindness. Mrs. Johnson, inspired by Tom's selflessness, found renewed purpose and began viewing her own struggles as opportunities for growth and connection. In their shared moments, Tom and Mrs. Johnson discovered a new perspective on life. Their relationship exemplified the power of kindness and the resilience of the human spirit. Connected by an act of generosity, they found strength and hope in each other's presence. As they faced their individual battles, their bond provided inspiration and courage, setting the stage for future transformations filled with unexpected possibilities. Mrs. Johnson found herself in an unexpected predicament, one that starkly contrasted with her usual refined existence. As she dined at a modest restaurant, she realized too late that her wallet was missing. The waiter, initially patient, grew increasingly impatient and finally asked her to leave. The public expulsion was a deeply humiliating experience, stripping her of the dignity she had always maintained. The crowd's indifferent gazes burned into her, each glance a reminder of her helplessness. She stood outside, teary-eyed and distraught, grappling with her unexpected vulnerability. Tom, observing the scene from across the street, felt a familiar pang of empathy. The world often turned a blind eye to the struggles of the vulnerable, a reality he knew all too well. He saw Mrs. Johnson's distress and felt compelled to act. Without a second thought, he approached her, his steps filled with determination. The little money he had saved was meant for his next meal, but he chose to use it to help Mrs. Johnson. He entered the restaurant and quietly paid her bill, his heart heavy with the weight of his own sacrifices. The act of paying Mrs. Johnson's bill was a profound gesture that spoke volumes about Tom's character. He didn't seek recognition or gratitude. His actions were driven by pure compassion. Mrs. Johnson, initially stunned by the stranger's kindness, quickly realized the depth of his sacrifice. She looked at Tom with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, unable to comprehend why a man with so little would help her. Her perception of kindness shifted dramatically in that moment, and a sense of hope began to bloom within her. As Tom handed the receipt to Mrs. Johnson, he noticed the change in her expression. Her initial shock was replaced by a heartfelt appreciation. She thanked him repeatedly, her voice quivering with emotion. Tom nodded, acknowledging her gratitude but not lingering for long. He understood the value of dignity and didn't want to overstay his welcome. Mrs. Johnson watched him leave, her mind racing with thoughts of how she could repay his kindness. The scene outside the restaurant had drawn a few curious onlookers, but Tom's swift departure left them with more questions than answers. Mrs. Johnson, now composed, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had been given a second chance, thanks to the selfless act of a stranger. Determined to find Tom and express her gratitude in a more meaningful way, she resolved to uncover his story. Her mind buzzed with ideas on how to make a difference in his life, mirroring the impact he had on hers. Tom, meanwhile, returned to his usual routine, unaware of the profound effect his actions had on Mrs. Johnson. His life on the streets continued to be a series of challenges, but his spirit remained unbroken. The brief encounter with Mrs. Johnson had reinforced his belief in the importance of kindness, even in the face of adversity. He walked away from the restaurant with a lighter heart, knowing he had made a difference, however small, in someone's life. Mrs. Johnson's determination to repay Tom's kindness became her driving force. She began asking around, trying to gather information about him. Her inquiries led her to various parts of the city, where she encountered others who had been touched by Tom's generosity. Each story she heard deepened her admiration for him. She realized that Tom was not just a kind stranger, but a beacon of hope in a world often devoid of compassion. Her quest to find him turned into a journey of discovering the true meaning of humanity. The restaurant incident became a turning point for Mrs. Johnson. Her renewed sense of purpose extended beyond finding Tom. It reignited her desire to help others in need. She started volunteering at local shelters and soup kitchens, inspired by Tom's selflessness. Her interactions with the less fortunate opened her eyes to the struggles that many face daily. Through these experiences, she found a new sense of fulfillment, one that transcended her own hardships. Her life, once centered on personal comfort, now revolved around giving back to the community. Tom and Mrs. Johnson's paths crossed again in an unexpected place. Mrs. Johnson, while volunteering at a soup kitchen, spotted Tom among the visitors. Their eyes met, and a silent recognition passed between them. Tom was surprised but pleased to see her, while Mrs. Johnson felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She approached him, and they shared a heartfelt conversation about their lives. This second encounter cemented their bond, transforming their initial act of kindness into a lasting friendship. The connection between Tom and Mrs. Johnson grew stronger as they continued to meet. Their relationship, built on mutual respect and shared experiences, became a source of strength for both. Tom found in Mrs. Johnson a confidant and friend, someone who saw beyond his circumstances. Mrs. Johnson, on the other hand, discovered a new perspective on life through Tom's eyes. Their bond was a testament to the power of empathy and kindness, creating a ripple effect that touched everyone they encountered. Tom's act of kindness came at a great personal cost. He had given Mrs. Johnson his last bit of money, leaving him with no means to buy food for himself. As he walked away from the restaurant, uncertainty loomed over his head. The city streets, cold and unwelcoming, now felt even harsher. Tom knew he had done the right thing, but the reality of his situation was undeniable. He faced a long, hungry night with no idea how he would get through the next day. Mrs. Johnson, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about Tom's sacrifice. She had never encountered such selflessness before, especially from someone with so little. Her heart ached with gratitude and a strong desire to help him. She spent the evening making phone calls, reaching out to friends and contacts who might know how to find Tom. Her determination to repay his kindness grew stronger with each passing hour, fueled by the memory of his compassionate eyes. Tom's decision to help Mrs. Johnson was not a calculated risk. It was a spontaneous act of empathy. He had lived a life filled with hardships and knew the value of a helping hand. Despite his dire circumstances, he found solace in the fact that he had eased someone else's burden. His stomach growled with hunger, but his spirit remained steadfast. The cold night air bit into his skin, but Tom's heart was warmed by the thought of Mrs. Johnson's grateful smile. The next morning brought no relief for Tom. He woke up feeling weak and disoriented, his body protesting the lack of nourishment. Yet, his mind was clear and focused. He had no regrets about his decision. As he wandered the streets, he kept an eye out for any opportunity to earn a bit of money or find some food. His survival instincts kicked in, but so did his unwavering hope. Tom believed that his good deed would not go unnoticed by the universe. Mrs. Johnson's search for Tom became more urgent with each passing day. She visited shelters and soup kitchens, describing him to anyone who would listen. Her persistence paid off when she finally found someone who knew of Tom. The man she spoke to had been helped by Tom in the past and gave her a lead on where he might be found. Mrs. Johnson's heart raced with anticipation as she followed the clues, her mind filled with plans to change Tom's life for the better. Tom's situation grew more precarious by the day. His body, weakened by hunger, struggled to keep up with his daily routine. He relied on the kindness of strangers and the small network of friends he had made on the streets. Each day was a battle for survival, but Tom's spirit remained unbroken. He held on to the hope that his circumstances would improve. The memory of Mrs. Johnson's gratitude served as a beacon of light in his darkest moments. Mrs. Johnson finally found Tom in a small park, sitting on a bench and resting. The sight of him brought tears to her eyes. She approached him with a mix of relief and determination. Tom looked up, surprised but pleased to see her. Their reunion was heartfelt and emotional. Mrs. Johnson wasted no time in expressing her gratitude and sharing her plans. She told Tom that she had spoken to several friends who were eager to help him. They offered food, shelter, and even job opportunities. Tom was overwhelmed by Mrs. Johnson's generosity and the sudden turn of events. He listened intently as she detailed the support that awaited him. For the first time in a long while, Tom felt a glimmer of hope for a better future. The conflict he had faced, the uncertainty of survival, began to dissipate. Mrs. Johnson's efforts had given him a lifeline. He accepted her help, not out of desperation, but out of a newfound belief in the possibility of change. The days that followed were a whirlwind of positive changes for Tom. He was introduced to people who were willing to give him a chance, not just out of charity, but because they recognized his potential. Tom's life began to transform, slowly but surely. He found himself in a warm bed at night, with the promise of work during the day. The conflict that had once defined his existence was being replaced by stability and hope. As Tom's life took a turn for the better, his bond with Mrs. Johnson deepened. They shared many conversations about their pasts, their struggles, and their dreams. Tom's journey from the brink of despair to a place of hope was a testament to the power of kindness and human connection. Mrs. Johnson's determination to help him had not only changed his life, but also enriched her own. Their story was a powerful reminder that even in the face of great challenges, hope and compassion could pave the way for incredible transformations. Mrs. Johnson's gratitude for Tom's selfless act grew stronger with each passing day. She couldn't forget the moment when he gave up his last bit of money to help her. Determined to repay his kindness, she began to form a plan. She contacted her friends, many of whom were influential and had resources to help. She shared Tom's story with them, emphasizing his generosity and resilience. Her heartfelt plea moved them, and they agreed to support her mission to change Tom's life. Tom, unaware of Mrs. Johnson's efforts, continued his daily struggle on the streets. Each day was a test of his endurance and spirit. Despite the hardships, he maintained a sense of dignity and purpose. He spent his days helping others in small ways, whether it was sharing a meal or offering a kind word. His nights, however, were filled with uncertainty and hunger. Yet, his belief in the power of kindness kept him going, even when hope seemed distant. Mrs. Johnson's determination to help Tom became her driving force. She coordinated with local shelters and community centers, arranging meetings and gathering resources. Her friends donated generously, providing food, clothing, and job opportunities for Tom. She planned to surprise him with the news, hoping to lift him out of his dire situation. The anticipation of seeing his reaction kept her motivated and focused. Her efforts were a testament to the profound impact Tom's kindness had on her. Tom's situation, meanwhile, grew more precarious. The cold nights took a toll on his health, and finding food became increasingly difficult. Despite these challenges, he never lost his will to help others. His encounters with those in need reminded him of the importance of compassion. Each act of kindness he performed, no matter how small, was a beacon of hope in his otherwise bleak existence. He believed that his actions, though unnoticed by many, held the power to create ripples of positive change. Mrs. Johnson finally located Tom through the help of a local community worker who had seen him at a soup kitchen. She arranged a meeting and gathered her friends, each ready to contribute to Tom's new beginning. The day of the meeting was filled with nervous excitement for Mrs. Johnson. She had prepared everything meticulously, ensuring that Tom would have all the support he needed. Her heart raced with anticipation as she made her way to the designated spot, eager to share the news with him. When Tom arrived at the meeting place, he was taken aback by the sight of Mrs. Johnson and a group of well-dressed individuals. His initial reaction was one of confusion, but as Mrs. Johnson stepped forward and explained her plan, his confusion turned into amazement. She spoke of the opportunities awaiting him, the jobs, the shelter, and the community support. Tom listened in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her efforts and the generosity of the people around him. The emotion of the moment was palpable. Tom, who had spent so long surviving on the streets, now stood at the brink of a new life. Tears filled his eyes as he expressed his gratitude, struggling to find the right words. Mrs. Johnson and her friends reassured him, their smiles and encouragement providing the comfort he needed. The transformation from a life of uncertainty to one filled with hope was a profound experience for Tom. He felt a sense of belonging he hadn't known in years. Tom's acceptance of the help offered to him marked the beginning of a significant transformation. He moved into a temporary shelter provided by one of Mrs. Johnson's friends. The warm bed and regular meals were luxuries he hadn't experienced in a long time. The support network around him ensured he had everything he needed to start anew. For the first time in years, Tom felt secure. The generosity of strangers, fueled by Mrs. Johnson's determination, had given him a new lease on life. As Tom began to rebuild his life, his relationship with Mrs. Johnson deepened. They spent time together, sharing stories of their past and discussing their dreams for the future. Tom's resilience and positivity inspired Mrs. Johnson, while her unwavering support gave him the confidence to pursue new opportunities. Their friendship, born out of an act of kindness, blossomed into a strong and enduring bond. Together, they proved that even the smallest acts of compassion could lead to life-changing transformations. The development of Tom's conflict highlighted the profound impact of empathy and support. Mrs. Johnson's relentless efforts to help him showcase the power of community and the importance of standing by those in need. Tom's journey from uncertainty to hope served as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, kindness could light the way. Their story continued to unfold, with each step bringing new challenges and triumphs, setting the stage for an even more significant revelation that awaited them. The following morning, Tom was awoken by the sound of footsteps. Groggy and disoriented, he rubbed his eyes and saw a group of well-dressed individuals approaching him. Leading them was Mrs. Johnson, her face beaming with a mix of excitement and relief. Tom's heart raced as he tried to comprehend what was happening. The stark contrast between his humble surroundings and the sophisticated group left him bewildered. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward and introduced the people who had come to help, explaining their intentions and the opportunities they had arranged for him. Tom listened in stunned silence as Mrs. Johnson spoke. She detailed how she had shared his story with her friends, emphasizing his kindness and resilience. Each person in the group expressed their admiration for Tom's selflessness and their eagerness to support him. They offered him a place to stay, job training, and even potential employment opportunities. Tom, who had grown accustomed to the harsh realities of street life, found it hard to believe that such kindness was being extended to him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he struggled to find the words to thank them. As the group escorted Tom to a nearby community center, he felt a whirlwind of emotions. The realization that his life was about to change dramatically hit him hard. He had spent so long fighting for survival that the prospect of stability and support felt almost surreal. The community center, warm and welcoming, stood in stark contrast to the cold streets he was used to. Mrs. Johnson and her friends reassured him every step of the way, their genuine concern and encouragement providing a sense of comfort and hope. At the community center, Tom was introduced to various support services. He met with a job counselor who discussed potential career paths based on his skills and interests. The counselor's positive attitude and practical advice instilled a sense of confidence in Tom. He also received new clothes, a hot meal, and a promise of temporary housing. The generosity of Mrs. Johnson and her friends left him speechless. Tom couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude and a renewed faith in humanity. The most significant moment came when Tom was offered a job interview at a local business. The owner, a friend of Mrs. Johnson, had heard about Tom's story and wanted to give him a chance. Tom's heart swelled with a mixture of nerves and excitement as he prepared for the interview. The support and encouragement from Mrs. Johnson and the community gave him the confidence to face this new challenge. The interview, which had once seemed like an impossible dream, was now a tangible reality. As Tom walked into the interview, he carried with him the hopes and dreams of everyone who had supported him. The interviewer, a kind and understanding man, made Tom feel at ease. They discussed Tom's past experiences and his aspirations for the future. Tom spoke candidly about his struggles and his desire to rebuild his life. The interviewer, impressed by Tom's honesty and determination, offered him the job. Tears of joy filled Tom's eyes as he accepted the offer, feeling a wave of relief and happiness. Tom's journey from the streets to securing a job was a testament to the power of kindness and community support. Mrs. Johnson's relentless efforts and the generosity of her friends had given Tom a second chance. He moved into temporary housing, provided by one of the community members, and began preparing for his new job. The stability of a regular income and a safe place to live marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Tom's transformation from a homeless man to a valued employee was nothing short of miraculous. Mrs. Johnson and Tom's bond grew even stronger as they navigated this new phase together. They spent time discussing their experiences, sharing their hopes, and planning for the future. Mrs. Johnson, inspired by Tom's resilience, found a renewed sense of purpose in helping others. She continued to advocate for the homeless community, using Tom's story as a beacon of hope. Tom, grateful for the second chance, dedicated himself to his new job and helping others in similar situations. Their partnership became a symbol of hope and transformation. The climax of Tom's journey was a powerful reminder of the impact that kindness and support could have on a person's life. The turning point, marked by Mrs. Johnson's efforts and the community's generosity, transformed Tom's life in ways he had never imagined. His story became a testament to the power of human connection and the incredible changes that could occur when people came together to help those in need. As Tom settled into his new life, he looked forward to the future with hope and determination, ready to embrace the opportunities ahead. With his new job and secure housing, Tom's life began to change in remarkable ways. He embraced his new role with enthusiasm, determined to prove himself and make the most of the opportunity. The regular income provided a stability he had long dreamed of, and he started to plan for a future he had once thought impossible. His colleagues, impressed by his dedication and positive attitude, quickly welcomed him into their community. Tom's journey from the streets to a stable job was a testament to his resilience and the power of second chances. Mrs. Johnson, meanwhile, watched Tom's progress with immense pride and satisfaction. Her efforts had not only changed Tom's life, but also enriched her own. Their friendship deepened as they continued to support each other. Mrs. Johnson, inspired by Tom's transformation, dedicated more time to helping the homeless community. She organized fundraisers and awareness campaigns, using Tom's story as a powerful example of how lives could be changed through compassion and support. Tom's gratitude for the support he had received was boundless. He made a conscious effort to give back to the community that had helped him. He volunteered at local shelters, sharing his story and offering hope to others in similar situations. His presence and words inspired many, showing that with a little help, it was possible to turn one's life around. The ripple effect of his actions began to spread, touching the lives of countless individuals who had lost hope. Mrs. Johnson and Tom's friendship became a symbol of the incredible impact that kindness could have. They spent time together, reminiscing about the past and planning for the future. Their bond, forged in a moment of mutual need, grew stronger with each passing day. Tom's life had come full circle, from the despair of homelessness to the joy of stability and purpose. He and Mrs. Johnson often reflected on how far they had come, their shared journey a source of strength and inspiration. Tom's new life was not without its challenges, but he faced them with renewed vigor. The support network around him, including Mrs. Johnson and his new colleagues, provided a solid foundation. He worked hard, always remembering the kindness that had brought him to this point. His determination and positive outlook became contagious, influencing those around him. Tom's transformation was not just about his own life. It was about the lives he touched and the hope he spread. As Tom settled into his new routine, he continued to find ways to help others. He organized food drives and fundraising events, collaborating with Mrs. Johnson and other community members. Their combined efforts made a significant difference, providing much-needed resources for the homeless and vulnerable. Tom's leadership and dedication inspired others to join the cause, creating a strong and supportive community. Together, they demonstrated the power of collective action and compassion. Mrs. Johnson's role in Tom's life was not just that of a benefactor, but also a friend and mentor. She guided him through the ups and downs, always offering encouragement and support. Her belief in Tom's potential was unwavering, and it fueled his drive to succeed. Their shared experiences and mutual respect formed the cornerstone of their relationship. Mrs. Johnson's unwavering support and Tom's resilience created a partnership that was both heartwarming and inspiring. Tom's journey from homelessness to stability was a testament to the power of kindness and human connection. The heartwarming resolution of his story highlighted the impact that one act of generosity could have. Mrs. Johnson's efforts had transformed not only Tom's life but also her own, creating a ripple effect that touched many others. Their story served as a powerful reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to profound and lasting changes. As Tom continued to build his new life, he remained committed to helping others. His journey had given him a unique perspective on the struggles faced by the homeless community. He used his experiences to advocate for better support and resources, working alongside Mrs. Johnson to create lasting change. Their combined efforts created a legacy of compassion and resilience, inspiring others to join the cause and make a difference. The heartwarming resolution of Tom's story was a beacon of hope and inspiration. It demonstrated that with support, determination, and kindness, even the most challenging circumstances could be overcome. Tom and Mrs. Johnson's journey was a testament to the transformative power of human connection. As they continued to work together, their story remained a powerful reminder of the impact that one act of kindness could have, setting the stage for a future filled with hope, purpose, and endless possibilities. The restaurant where Mrs. Johnson faced her moment of humiliation was modest but bustling with activity. The smell of freshly baked bread and sizzling meat wafted through the air, mingling with the murmur of conversations and the clinking of cutlery. The decor was simple yet inviting, with checkered tablecloths and warm lighting casting a cozy glow. Mrs. Johnson, with her dignified appearance and refined manners, seemed out of place among the casual diners. Her distress was palpable as she stood at the entrance, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and eyes glistening with unshed tears. Tom, standing outside the restaurant, was a stark contrast to the scene inside. His clothes were worn and tattered, his face weathered by the harsh realities of street life. Yet, his eyes held a depth of kindness and resolve that drew people in. The cold air bit at his skin, but he barely noticed as he focused on Mrs. Johnson's plight. The street was busy with pedestrians, their hurried steps and indifferent expressions highlighting the isolation felt by those on the fringes of society. Tom's determination to help Mrs. Johnson cut through the chaos, a beacon of hope in an otherwise indifferent world. The night Tom spent after helping Mrs. Johnson was one of the coldest he had experienced. The biting wind seemed relentless, and the hard pavement offered little comfort. Tom's stomach growled with hunger, but the warmth he felt from his act of kindness provided a small measure of solace. The city's lights, twinkling in the distance, cast long shadows that danced across the alley where he found shelter. Each gust of wind carried with it the harsh reality of his situation, yet Tom's spirit remained unbroken, bolstered by the memory of Mrs. Johnson's gratitude. The community center where Tom was introduced to new opportunities was a haven of warmth and hope. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade pastries filled the air, a stark contrast to the cold streets outside. The walls were adorned with colorful artwork created by local children, each piece telling a story of resilience and dreams. The welcoming smiles of the staff and volunteers provided an immediate sense of belonging. Tom felt a wave of relief wash over him as he stepped inside, the promise of a fresh start palpable in the air. When Tom received his new clothes, the transformation was striking. Gone were the rags that had clung to his frame. In their place were clean, well-fitted garments that restored a sense of dignity. The feel of the soft fabric against his skin was a luxury he hadn't experienced in years. Each new item symbolized a step towards a better future. Tom's reflection in the mirror was almost unrecognizable. The man staring back at him looked hopeful and confident, a far cry from the worn-out figure he had grown accustomed to. The job interview was held in a modern office building, its sleek design and bustling atmosphere a world away from the streets Tom had known. The scent of freshly brewed coffee permeated the air, and the hum of activity created an undercurrent of energy and purpose. Tom's nervousness was palpable as he walked into the interview room, but the friendly demeanor of the interviewer quickly put him at ease. The conversation flowed naturally, and Tom's honesty and determination shone through. The offer of employment felt like a dream, a tangible validation of his potential and hard work. Tom's first day at work was filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The office was bright and airy, with large windows letting in streams of natural light. The sound of keyboards clacking and phones ringing created a rhythm that was both new and invigorating. Tom's desk, neatly organized with supplies and a computer, symbolized a fresh start. His colleagues greeted him warmly, their genuine smiles easing his nerves. The aroma of lunch being prepared in the break room was a welcome reminder of the stability he had longed for. The park where Tom often sought solace was a place of quiet reflection amidst the city's hustle and bustle. The gentle rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds provided a serene backdrop for his thoughts. Benches, worn smooth by countless visitors, offered a place to rest and observe. The sight of children playing and families enjoying picnics brought a sense of normalcy and joy. It was here that Mrs. Johnson found Tom once more, their reunion underscored by the natural beauty and tranquility of their surroundings. The park, a symbol of peace and renewal, mirrored the transformation in Tom's life. Tom's new home, provided by one of Mrs. Johnson's friends, was modest yet comfortable. The warmth of the living room, with its cozy furniture and inviting decor, offered a stark contrast to the cold streets he had known. The smell of home-cooked meals wafted through the air, a daily reminder of the stability and security he now enjoyed. Each room, thoughtfully furnished, was a testament to the generosity of those who had helped him. The bed, with its soft blankets and plump pillows, provided a restful sleep that Tom had long missed. His new surroundings filled him with gratitude and a sense of belonging. The profound connection between Tom and Mrs. Johnson was reflected in their shared moments. Their conversations, often held over cups of tea in her cozy kitchen, were filled with laughter and mutual respect. The gentle clinking of porcelain and the warm glow of the setting sun created an atmosphere of comfort and camaraderie. Each visit reinforced their bond, a testament to the transformative power of kindness and human connection. The details of their interactions, from the sincere smiles to the supportive words, painted a vivid picture of friendship and hope. Tom's generosity, despite his own dire circumstances, deeply resonated with everyone who heard his story. His willingness to help Mrs. Johnson when he had so little himself highlighted the profound depth of his character. The community was touched by his actions, and many felt a newfound sense of empathy and compassion. Tom's story became a powerful reminder of the inherent goodness that could be found in unexpected places. His selflessness served as a beacon of hope, inspiring others to act with kindness and generosity. Mrs. Johnson's experience of humiliation and subsequent gratitude created a strong emotional connection with the audience. People could easily empathize with her vulnerability and the indignity she faced. Her story of being helped by Tom, a man society often overlooked, struck a chord with many. The stark contrast between her refined appearance and her moment of helplessness underscored the universality of human dignity and the importance of compassion. Mrs. Johnson's heartfelt efforts to repay Tom's kindness further deepened this emotional connection, illustrating the power of gratitude and community. Tom's moment of vulnerability when he sacrificed his last bit of money for Mrs. Johnson was a poignant highlight of their story. The audience felt a surge of empathy for him, understanding the immense sacrifice he made. His actions were a testament to the resilience and generosity of the human spirit, even in the face of personal hardship. This moment of vulnerability made Tom a relatable and inspiring figure, showing that true strength often lies in acts of selflessness and compassion. Mrs. Johnson's subsequent determination to help Tom mirrored the audience's own feelings of wanting to make a difference. Her actions were driven by a deep sense of gratitude and a desire to repay the kindness she had received. This determination resonated with the audience, reminding them of the power of collective action and support. Mrs. Johnson's vulnerability and resolve created a powerful narrative of redemption and transformation, emphasizing the impact of kindness on both the giver and the receiver. The emotional connection between Tom and Mrs. Johnson grew stronger with each interaction. Their shared experiences and mutual support created a bond that was both heartwarming and inspiring. The The audience saw themselves in their struggles and triumphs, feeling a deep sense of empathy and connection. Their story illustrated the profound impact of human connection and the transformative power of kindness. Each act of support and understanding between them reinforced the idea that compassion could bridge even the widest of gaps. Tom's transformation from a homeless man to a valued member of the community was a journey that resonated deeply with the audience. His perseverance and optimism in the face of adversity inspired many, showing that change was possible with the right support. The emotional highs and lows of his journey created a narrative that was both engaging and uplifting. The audience rooted for Tom, feeling a shared sense of joy and hope as he took each step towards a better life. Mrs. Johnson's unwavering support and friendship with Tom highlighted the importance of community and mutual aid. Her actions demonstrated that even small gestures of kindness could have a significant impact. The audience felt a strong emotional connection to her character, seeing her as a symbol of compassion and resilience. Her journey from humiliation to becoming a pillar of support for Tom was a powerful reminder of the strength found in solidarity and empathy. The story's focus on moments of vulnerability and compassion created a deeply human and relatable narrative. The audience felt a sense of connection with both Tom and Mrs. Johnson, understanding their struggles and celebrating their triumphs. The emotional depth of their story, filled with moments of sacrifice, gratitude, and transformation, left a lasting impact. Each interaction and act of kindness between them reinforced the idea that even in the darkest times, humanity and compassion could light the way. Tom and Mrs. Johnson's story also highlighted the broader impact of kindness on the community. Their actions inspired others to step forward and offer support, creating a ripple effect of generosity and compassion. The audience felt a sense of shared responsibility and empowerment, realizing that they too could make a difference in someone's life. This collective sense of empathy and action underscored the transformative power of community and the importance of standing together. The emotional connection forged through Tom and Mrs. Johnson's journey was a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Their story of kindness, sacrifice, and transformation touched the hearts of many, inspiring acts of compassion and support. The audience was left with a profound sense of hope and belief in the power of human connection. As their story continued to unfold, the bond between Tom and Mrs. Johnson remained a shining example of what could be achieved when people came together with empathy and kindness. As Tom and Mrs. Johnson's story demonstrates, acts of kindness and compassion can profoundly impact lives. Their journey from strangers to friends, connected by a selfless act, showcases the power of human connection and the incredible transformations it can bring. Tom's resilience and Mrs. Johnson's unwavering support remind us that hope and generosity can flourish even in the most challenging circumstances. Tom's transformation from a homeless man to a valued community member is a testament to the impact of empathy and collective effort. Mrs. Johnson's determination to repay Tom's kindness not only changed his life, but also inspired many others to act with compassion. Their story highlights that every small act of kindness can ripple outwards, touching countless lives and creating a more compassionate world. Now, as we reflect on this heartwarming journey, I invite you to stay tuned for the next inspiring story that awaits you. Let the lessons of Tom and Mrs. Johnson's experience inspire you to act with kindness and empathy in your own life. Click on the video appearing on your screen to continue this journey of hope and transformation. Each story brings new insights and reminders of the incredible power of human connection. If you believe in the power of these stories and want to continue receiving the best emotional and uplifting content, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Activate the notifications to never miss an update and be the first to watch our latest videos. Your support helps us keep bringing these powerful stories to life, reminding everyone of the beauty of human compassion. Additionally, if you'd like to contribute and help us continue sharing these touching stories daily, check out the link in the pinned comment to buy me a coffee. Your contribution will enable us to keep producing content that inspires and uplifts. Together, we can make a difference and spread the message of hope and kindness far and wide. Thank you for being part of this journey. We look forward to sharing more incredible stories with you. Remember, every act of kindness counts, and together, we can create a more compassionate world. See you in the next video.